Let's get more reactions, shall we, to that 5-1 drubbing from the hands of Colombia. Alexis and Herc are in actually North Carolina ahead of the TST semi-finals and finals. But guys, take it away. Take us through your thoughts of what we saw last night.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dan. And I was actually at that game, and it was pretty much like a home game for Colombia in Bogota. But look, that's nothing new, as the USA said, that they are used to hostile atmospheres, for example, up against Mexico at the Azteca. So they're not going to use that as an excuse. But you heard from Gregg Berhalter there, Herc. He said it was a disrespect to the game of soccer. He said that it was a wake-up call. Matt Turner actually also spoke to us, and he said that Colombia came with an intensity that they were just too casual for. Is that how you saw it?
Fair assessment. I think Gregg Berhalter was right. It was a disrespect to the game of football, disrespect to the U.S. men's national team. And he also, some would say, threw his players under the bus when he said that they didn't do their job. Let me tell you who else didn't do their job. Gregg Berhalter. And that's been the case when it comes to facing top 20 opposition. What did you think was going to happen when you played a Colombia that's going on 21 games unbeaten? Now 22.
Yep.
Last 6 games victories. A team that is flying in World Cup qualifying in one of the hardest qualifying formats that there is in world football. That if you're not careful against a team that actually plays well, that actually has players in a good moment, in big leagues and good moment, that are important factors in their team, they can hurt you. That's what happened. I understand what Gregg Berhalter's talking about, these casual mistakes. We saw them. Tim Ream, who's supposed to be your main distributor. He's on the field not because he could defend well, not because per pace he's going to catch up to these guys, but because with the ball at his feet, he can help you out going forward. Bambi on ice with the ball. That's what it was like. And then some of these other guys who got opportunities. We could say it's an off day, but this has been the case every time they set foot between top 20 opposition. They do great against Mexico. You can beat the worst generation of Mexican players that I've ever seen in my lifetime. But when it comes to playing well against top quality opposition, we've seen this before.
And I mean, one of the interesting things, too, is that Colombia was able to do something that no other country has been able to do on U.S. soil, and that was score not 1 but 2 goals in the first opening 20 minutes against the USA. First time they did that in almost 30 years. So is it the back line that you would blame the most in this one? We know that there's some familiar faces, I suppose, missing, especially in that right-back position with no Serginho Dest. Gregg Berhalter still trying to see who will probably fit there. But this back line probably has to take a long look at itself.
Yeah, let me tell you something. If the U.S. men's national is trying to rely on Serginho Dest to keep a shutout, you're in big trouble. That's not what he's going to offer to you. He's going to be very good with the ball going forward in the final third. He's going to do his thing. He can be the X factor for you going forward. Not defending. This goes beyond the back line. There was some poor individual performances. Matt Turner, I'm sure Shaka's going to talk about him. He had a couple that he's going to want back. Tim Ream, as experienced as he is, maybe the rust is there, the age is there. Johnny Cardoso getting an opportunity in the absence of Tyler Adams wasn't very good. Across the board, wasn't very good within performances. I'm more worried about this team in the sense that this is Colombia. Top 20 opposition. This isn't the only good team you're going to face in Copa America. What are the solutions you are looking for? What is the DNA? What is the fallback? You heard it in the voice of Christian Pulisic. It was disgust. I think a lot of people are feeling that way, but this by no means is a surprise. I know 5 goals sounds like a crazy drubbing. And trust me, the guys have been there. We've been there when you're on the field. And it should have been a 3-1 game. You get out. We lost. We were outclassed. It got away from them at the end. These casual mistakes. Timothy Weah, who I thought was poor, signs the goal. Trying to dribble out of the back, gets caught. Cameron Carter-Vickers comes in. Didn't do so well. Chris Richards making mistakes. Overall, I hope they can chalk it up as a bad night and move forward, but we've seen this movie before.
Well, that question that Christian Pulisic reacted to, not in the very nicest way, he was a bit annoyed by it, but it was saying, you know, comparing this U.S. team, again, this golden generation that we keep talking about, time and time again, every time there's a big major tournament, it was pound for pound, the U.S. players, are they better than this Colombia team? And I think you tweeted after and you said that we keep looking too much at the individual talents of these players, but as a collective, something still is missing, Herc. What is it, and how do they sort it out before the Copa America, or at least before Brazil?
So this U.S. men's national team has not done anything that its predecessors, that those before them have not done. We go back to '94, World Cup win against Colombia, a Colombia team that was favored in that '94 World Cup. We can go back to 2002, shocked Portugal, the round of 16, the 2-0 against Mexico, a blown handball call away, Torsten Frings on that line from being in a semifinal of a World Cup. 2009, the U.S. men's national team, Bob Bradley's generation, ended a 35-game unbeaten run for the Spanish team that ran an era. 2010, they won the group. You win your World Cup group. The famous win against Algeria, Landon Donovan goal. 2014, that generation, Jurgen Klinsmann's men, they beat the Dutch, they beat Germany, they beat Italy in Europe, they beat Mexico in the Azteca, get out of the group of death in the World Cup. What has this team done? What has this U.S. men's national team with, it's not even arguable, the greatest collection of individual talent in their history, in the history of the program, what have they done besides, I repeat, beating the worst generation of Mexican players that I've ever seen in my lifetime?
So then, is it back to the Gregg Berhalter question then?
I think it goes further than Gregg Berhalter. I don't think, listen, Gregg Berhalter right now, he's the guy everyone's going to point to. There are some very bad individual performances. We got to start pointing the fingers at these players as well, and at the people who put Gregg Berhalter in charge. If you're asking for Gregg Berhalter's head, if you're asking for him to leave, to step down, who are the people that put him in charge, gave him a second term when it wouldn't, just very easy. Actually, the easiest thing to do would have been walk away.
Looking at the players now, as you just mentioned, specifically, who do you need to put their hand up, at least against Brazil now? Because as we said, this Copa America, before, you need to sort things out. We cannot see this even in the first match.
Yeah, the leaders of this team. Who are these leaders? Tim Ream, I was one of the players that were very critical with his inclusion in the World Cup, and he was one of the best players at that World Cup. A very good player, and he proved it why at that World Cup. Now you're coming off a season where you didn't play that much, where you're getting older, a little longer in the tooth, what you're supposed to do on the field to lead, to distribute. All of a sudden you can't do. He's a guy who's going to want to look himself in the mirror, and I'm sure he will. He's a professional. Christian Pulisic, how good he's been for Milan, he's going to need to do that. Weston McKennie, the leaders of this team. Matt Turner, who's had a very down year for Nottingham Forest, if he wants to stay the number one, these are players who individually need to look themselves in the mirror, and I think they will. They've shown the ability to be resilient and rebound, but he called it a wake-up call. I think that's just a very nice way of saying you're not as good as you thought you were.
All right, well, now it's time for the U.S. to rest and regroup. At least that's what they said, because up next is Brazil, and we know how stern a test they definitely can be, Dan.